How often do you start doing things at the last minute? Has it ever happened that you were given a month's worth of assignments and you started working in the last few days? Or being a student, did you sit down to study for exams in the last week, although you had the opportunity to start preparing earlier? Do not be surprised, this problem is faced by most people in the world. We can even say that absolutely every person tends to behave this way because it is a feature of our brain. Just some people have learned secrets and learned to work competently with their brain and its sense of time. Believe me, if you understand what is further said in the video and adopt it in your life, you can become a truly productive person and increase results in all areas of life. In 1955, the British magazine The Economist published an article in which the author described an empirical law that later became known as the Parkinson's Law. Author of this material was the British military historian, writer, and author of works on management problems Cyril Northcote Parkinson. A year later, this article was reprinted by the American magazine Fortune. This topic was incredibly popular and impressed millions of people around the world, which later prompted the author to write a book with his sayings. What is this law? Why is it so relevant for any person? And how will it help you personally become more productive? The law is work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. You probably thought it was something you didn't understand, but don't hurry to turn off the video. It will become clear. Parkinson explained that the work will not be finished until you have set a time limit for its completion. Let's start right away with an example. Imagine you've been assigned a presentation at work and given a deadline of 7 days. Your brain will decide that the task needs to be done in that time. But if you reduce the deadline to 5 days or 3 days, your brain will find ways to get it done too. The work will be done in the time frame that you personally decide and communicate your decision to your brain, not the one set by your boss. Let's take a more mundane example. You sat down to write a text and allocated 24 hours for its writing, although the real term of the task is 2 hours. Your brain will perceive it in such a way that it should distribute this task for the set time. It will slow you down on purpose. How? Your writing speed will drop, you'll need rest, and you're guaranteed to become distracted. Your brain will do everything it can to make sure you don't finish your work before the deadline. This feature is characteristic of all people on the planet, and that is why this law is so popular and has not lost its relevance after 70 years. Many firms and labor groups in history have tested this firsthand and confirmed that this law works. So how can this knowledge help you become more productive? Now you know that our brain will divide the deadline of a task by the time it is given. You should be guided by the rule of less time and more effort needed to utilize your resources to the maximum and reduce the time needed to complete your work. Make a new rule to set a timer when you start doing some work. Imagine that you have to write an email and you have a rough idea that it usually takes you at least 30 minutes to complete it. Cut it down to 25 minutes and be sure to set a timer on your phone. You'll be surprised, but your brain will start working faster and do the work in the same quality, but in a shorter amount of time. The next tip is how to utilize Parkinson's Law. When you start planning your upcoming day or week, next to each task, put the time you are willing to take to complete it. For example, on Mondays, you set aside 4 hours to work on your paperwork. You know that if you wanted to, you could reduce the time to do this work, so now set a plan to complete it in 3.5 hours. I am sure you will succeed and save a large amount of time. Analyze all your activities, evaluate which tasks you are stretching too long, and start speeding up your work by writing deadlines and setting a timer. Your brain will resist at first, but after a few weeks, you'll be much more productive. Just imagine that by reducing your daily action by 10 minutes in a year, you'll gain almost 61 hours of extra time. If the video was helpful, put a like and be sure to check out the other videos on the channel.